Okay, okay, I think now it's working. Thank you very much. All right, come, guys. it's about time. So my name is Konstantina Palla, and today I will talk to you about how we are using machine learning, and specifically generative AI in Spotify. It's a big topic. I will try to cover things very briefly, and the takeaway message will be what is the future of music along with generative AI, and also not only music, but content on the platform of Spotify and personalization. Before going into the actual talk, little things about me. I am Konstantina Palla. I am a senior researcher in Spotify. I joined a bit more than 2 years ago. I am based in London, and you can find clues about me in that photo. Now, let's step back and spend a couple of minutes in order to take a short trip in the history of Spotify. Spotify started around 2008, and in its initial form, it was just a utility platform. It was, and by utility we mean that the user was just able to enter a request, to enter a song they would like to listen, and the platform was returning the song. It was as simple as that, not very sophisticated. Later on, around 2014 to 2018, the platform advanced itself, and it was more able, but still quite early stages, it was able to do stuff around curation. So in simple terms, that means that we had playlists that were created by the user or by the specific music curators in Spotify, and the user was able to use this playlist and accompany events throughout their life. What was happening, and was not even understood back then, is that by doing so, the users were actually giving us information about what they like to do, about their activities, about their morning run, about how they make dinner, even about their breakup. And this is exactly the time where the notion of personalization in music started. And this is actually the cornerstone in Spotify. We are using machine learning in order to personalize the experience. And of course, this brings us now to nowadays, which we don't have only music, but Spotify now is a whole entertainment hub. It's actually a personalized entertainment hub. You can not only find music, but you can find content from podcasts, audiobooks, playlists, even music videos nowadays. Now, in terms of numbers, the scalability is huge. We have more than 600 million active users. A bit less than 200 marketers are using Spotify. More than 100 million tracks. And you can understand what this means actually for the creative people, for the creators that are able to upload their content on Spotify. But these numbers also imply a question. Why is Spotify so beloved? Why is Spotify used across so many people and creators? And the answer, of course, is personalization. Personalization is exactly the moving engine in Spotify, is why people prefer Spotify. But how is personalization achieved? It's not an easy task, and this slide brings to show 3 levels that achieve this personalization, but it's a very simplified slide. There is a lot of more details and granularity behind that. If we attempt to explain how this is achieved, though, using this slide, we have to identify these 3 layers. At the bottom, we have the wealth of data that Spotify has, and we capture this data from your phone while the user is using the phone to listen to music, from the clicks, from the likes, from the playlist that the user is creating, from the location that the user is using the application, and so on and so forth. Then, on the second level, we have what we machine learning practitioners do in our everyday life in Spotify. We build the algorithms that use this data in order to get insights and make the experience of the user more personalized. And this is exactly the delivery on the third level, where we actually deliver this personalized experience. So if we have now to explain how the machine learning algorithms, or what also people call AI, evolved over the time in Spotify, we have to give an overview only in order to be able to understand what was the driving forces behind this evolution. So Spotify evolved, and at the same time, the machine learning algorithms evolved behind the system. It is very useful to identify the two driving forces behind this evolution. The first one is, of course, the need to understand the user. If you don't understand the user is not going to stay with you. However, you can also need to bring balance between the user and the creator. You need to make sure that the content that you have in your platform is exposed to as many users as possible. And this is exactly the two driving forces for creating machine learning algorithms that support personalization. We want to understand the user, but at the same time, to expose as much content as possible. At the very core, at the very early stages, if you like, the foundation of the machine learning algorithm implementation was as simple as being able to map the user to the content. And by doing so, you can understand that this simply means that we want to be able to understand what the user wants and find the specific content that we have available in the platform, and is a content that the specific user will like. And then the question pops up, how can we understand the user? How can we actually get insight in what the user likes? And of course, the answer again, as I said earlier, is data. We have all this wealth of data. We know what the user likes in terms of music, what songs they like, what podcasts they like, what artists they follow, what kind of playlist and when they use this playlist. All this information is very valuable. And by using this information, we can actually, if you can vision, we can actually create a space, a universe, where we can map the users, but also we can map the content. And we create connections between them. And this is exactly at the basis of being able to create machine learning that does this mapping. Example of that, of course, is the very well-known Discover Weekly, and this is very popular because this has been really associated with Spotify. It's a playlist, actually. And underneath that, for the people that might be aware, Spotify has used extensively the algorithm called collaborative filtering. In simple terms, it just does the mapping very well. Moving on, we had to evolve. We had also to be able to build algorithms that are context-aware. What we mean by that, we mean that we want to be able to have algorithms that don't only do the mapping, but actually understand what and when the user listens to the music or uses the content. So the algorithms became context-aware of the time, of the location. Further on, we wanted also to evolve even more the implementation of the machine learning, and we wanted to be able to build algorithms that are dynamic. By dynamic, we introduced the notion of time. We want to be able, the machine learning, to understand how the user listens to the songs one after the other and why. Is the user skipping? Is the user liking more often? Is the user pausing a specific song more? This information is super useful, and it introduced more understanding over the user. Of course, at the same time, there is another challenge, and this is very important to point out the dynamics that the creators of machine learning algorithms need to be aware of. We want to understand the user, but at the same time, we want to be sure that the user is exposed to new content as well. So we want to bring balance between understanding the user and offering what they like, but at the same time offering new content and probably evolving the taste of the user. And this brings us, in a very brief trip, to nowadays, where we're talking about generative AI. By having this trip, it's pretty now, probably and hopefully, it is very aware that Spotify has evolved as a machine learning engine and has brought itself in being very capable at understanding the user. Now, what generative AI does in Spotify is that taking this one step further in a synergetic way, not alone and independently. So what generative AI does is that actually creates interaction and builds a relationship with the user. Probably this is a slide that you have seen, variations of it at least, many times. I won't go into details, but what the slide says is that generative AI is only a part of the whole field of AI. And this part is also associated a lot with large language models that create text in a very simple form and understand text very, very well. So now we're going to the fun part. How is Spotify using generative AI? Spotify, as I said earlier, is not using generative AI as a set of algorithms alone. It's using generative AI to wrap the already strong capabilities of personalization. So it creates a fusion of two different capable systems. One is the Spotify system, which is very, very strong, and the other is the generative AI, large language models capabilities. Example, a very strong example of how Spotify enabled the use of generative AI inside the system is that of AI playlist. How many of you are aware of AI playlist if we're using Spotify? Okay, if not, it's okay, I'm happy because I'm gonna introduce that to you. So AI playlist is actually an application in Spotify, let's say a system that actually enables the user with just the use of a single prompt to indicate to the system what kind of playlist they would like to listen, and then the system gives us output the playlist. Let's see an example here. You just enter the prompt, and the system is able to return the playlist that the user asked for. All right. So this is AI playlist, and it has been going on for a bit under a year, I think, and has really been loved by all the users. And one of the biggest comments and the input that we get is that actually gives the people this kind of strong, put them in a position to immediately ask for what they want and how they feel, instead of the need actually to create a playlist. This is created by them, but the use of only a simple prompt. And then moving on, we also embraced the whole generative AI even more and found out more capabilities that were introduced in the platform. Of course, I'm in a position of saying this very, very easily, and there's a lot of discussions inside Spotify, how this can be done, and whether this should be done. There's a lot of discussions when a new technology comes, and we need to introduce that to the public, where, of course, a lot of worries, where it will be loved, will be liked, or what is the competition. But, of course, this is a discussion outside of the scope of this talk. But I am happy to take this offline. So the next product that we introduced is that of what we call AI DJ. The AI DJ, you can think about it as having a friend speaking to you while you are listening when you're using Spotify and narrating your music streaming experience. Again, it's not a standalone algorithm, but it's a synergy of three different kind of systems, machine learning systems. One is the Spotify Inside personalization technology. The other one is generative AI, which is large language models. And lastly is the inside team that we have, in-house team that we have in Spotify that is able to turn text into voice, into synthesized voice. Let's see. I'm gonna skip this, but you're gonna get an idea of how this looks like.
Hey Max, what's going on? I'm X, and from this moment on, I'm gonna be your own personal AI DJ on Spotify. Let's go. Up next, I know you've been on a summer song kick lately, so I went back for some of your old summertime favorites. See if it warms you up. Next up, some of the music you had on a lot back in 2018.
Do you think of me?
In the interest of time, I'm skipping this a bit. So, as you could see, we have a human voice speaking to you while you are using the app. And the strong attributes and the really amazing attributes of this product is that you have this natural voice, this voice talking to you about your own experience, about also your personal interest and favorites around the music or also around your content. And this brings you in a closer, in a way, feeling relationship with the experience that you are going through, with the music that you are listening to. It makes also the personalization more intimate in a way as well. Of course, as I said earlier, this is a synergy of also a lot of different teams, and one of them, which is different from the previous product, is the voice team that makes text into a synthesized human voice. Of course, we're not talking, I will also give an example of another kind of product that you might not realize that is also a generative AI product on Spotify. We have now podcast, and podcast, the problem with a lot of the episodes is that they're very long. And if you're a user that you don't really follow a specific podcast, it's really hard to invest so much time to understand, in order to understand like 1 hour time in order to understand whether you are interested in the podcast on the specific episode. So what we did is that we actually used generative AI to create segments, kind of like small previews of the specific podcast, which we call chapters, and now people can actually listen to the specific chapter that might find interesting, as we also provide, again, with generative AI description or even a new topic, or even the topic of the specific chapter. This, of course, the biggest takeaway of this is that this also improved discovery because people were more willing to spend a couple of minutes listening to a chapter before deciding whether they want to invest more time into that. We can skip this in the interest of time because I would like to take questions. If we take a step back, we can actually see that personalization is actually a journey. It started with a simple application of utility, of being such a simple utility in Spotify, and now becoming to what we actually see in the previous examples of products, where we have generative AI actually speaking to you and giving you a tool to create your own content the way you want to listen to that, to create your own experience, if you say. So personalization using technology to actually carry this trip over, to carry itself over a trip, both for the user but also for the content. And of course, the future is still to come, and we don't know what to expect yet. It wouldn't be right, it wouldn't feel right, of course, if we don't have some reflections. I briefly mentioned that in this talk, showing cases, examples of technology, it only shows one aspect, one view of the product or of the technology, of the decisions that need to be made before the final product. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about, the data or the team effort, but also a lot of the anticipation of what, or even in a way, the challenges of what will come when more generative AI is going to be used for more products. Safety is also foundational, is a foundational issue, and of course every platform that is in contact with a user that uses technology like generative AI and machine learning will need to be aware and be proactive about it. Of course, we care about the future of the user interaction, and more algorithms will be built to hyper-personalize the experience, to improve the exploration, to be more timeliness, to take care of the timeliness. That means to be ahead of the time, to anticipate trends, and of course, the importance of having the music curators, what we call the human in the loop, and in Spotify is the music curators with their human judgment. And at this point, I will finish the talk, and I will welcome a question for 30 seconds, if that's possible. Thank you very much. A quick question. If not, I'm happy to take it offline. Yes.
All right. How much transparent you think you are in terms of how you're letting users know how you are taking advantage of their data?
That's a very good question. We are transparent in many different ways. We are transparent, of course, in online platform guidelines. We're transparent, of course, on the terms that the user can read when they're using the platform. But I guess you're actually asking how much even these guidelines cover. I can ensure that we are covering the user. We have a lot of inside teams that take care of this. And I don't know what else. Yeah, can be that. I think we're past on time, so sorry about that. But we can. Yes, sure.
How do we? So we're talking about generative AI and how it can find music for us. But is there going to be a possibility where we're going to ask it to create a single beat and lyrics and kind of make our own song without using any instrument ourselves?
Interesting question. I will just answer it briefly. The capability exists. It's a question whether how this can be brought on platform without compromising the creators already out there. This is the discussion we should be having, not whether it should be capable. The capability is already there, as in the technology exists.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.